Okay, guys, so today we're actually going to try to put all of these pieces together. So we're going to talk about how to place these features that we've worked on finessing and getting better at drawing into a face itself. And we're going to use a technique that is really looking at the face straight on, but my thinking is that the more we can understand proportionally how the face is arranged, the more we can then get more advanced in drawing faces from the side or looking up or all of these other views. So we're going to talk about drawing straight on and then from there hopefully expand. So I'm going to flip the screen and start the lecture, and we'll get started. So today we're talking about the portrait, the full portrait, putting all of these beautiful studies of our features into our faces. And these are some really beautiful drawings, all done in slightly different media, slightly different viewpoints, different looking people, and we can see just how effective having a strong sense of those features can be for making a piece look real. So a couple of points about proportions that are really helpful to think about and are general, they are not always true, are that when you are looking at your subject straight on, as we see in the image on the left there, the width of the head is generally 2/3 of the height. The width of the head is generally 2/3 of the height. So we see on that image there are 3 squares high and 2 squares wide, and that suggests that it is 2/3. This is a proportion that we're going to be working with when working on our drawings today, so keep that proportion in mind. On the right, we see this idea that when you're looking at your profile and you're looking at your subject in a really very strict, perfect profile, the width of the head is generally, again, underscore generally, 7/8 of the height. So it's a lot wider than a lot of us might assume. We tend to really shave off part of the back of the head when drawing and also shorten the head when drawing. So that's why I always like to start with these two somewhat unexpected proportions about the head. So a couple of points that are really helpful to think about, and as you do more drawing, you'll notice this over and over. Shocking to many is this idea that the eye level line is generally around halfway down the face. I'll say that again, halfway down the face. So hard to believe. We tend to think of eyes as being up high, right? But they are not. They are halfway down the face. And the top of the ears will generally be in line with the eye level. And the bottom of the ears can fall somewhere around the bottom of the nose or potentially lower or higher, of course, depending on our features that we are looking at. So really, really important that eye level line falls a lot lower than many of us think it does. When you look at the face in a true profile, you'll also be sort of surprised to note that from that exterior part of the eye down to the chin is usually around the same length, looking from that exterior part of the eye to the ear. And that is actually a lot longer than a lot of us assume as well, which kind of goes back to that earlier statistic about the head being 7/8 the width and 8/8 for the height when you're looking at a full profile. So again, things might be a little bit different than we assume that they are. You always want to look for that cross-axis line of the face, that invisible T or cross that runs across the eye level horizontally and down through the center of the face, through the nose and through the lips. We talked a little bit about that when we were talking about mouths the other day. Understanding where this is will help you draw a face no matter what direction it's facing. So we can see that this model is looking a little bit to the side, and yet following where that cross-axis goes will allow us to continue to maintain the accuracy of the face. Same thing with this, head cocked a little bit to the side. We see that cross-axis moving with the head. Another shocking piece of information about the proportions on a face, and again, this varies person to person, human being to human being, is that when you look at a face straight on, the eyes will generally have around one eye width between them. Not always true. Some of us have closer set eyes or wider set eyes, but try to use the eyes to actually measure against. And on the other side of the eyes, around one eye around them. This doesn't necessarily mean that this is all just face. It could be part of the ear, it could be part of the hair, but this is to say that a lot of us tend to make that area a lot more narrow than we need to. And when you look really closely and you use sighting, there is actually a fair amount of space between the edge of the eye and the edge of the head. So 5 eyes across is what we're going to sort of use as our base, and then we'll adjust from there. Another thing that's important to pay attention to is this idea of where the features fall in relationship to each other. So the exterior points of the nostrils, the wings of the nostrils, can actually be checked against the inner part of the eyes, right? As we see her on this drawing, looks like the artist has dropped a plumb line, a straight line down from the tear ducts of the eyes, and those are hitting on this particular person the wings of their nostrils. So they have a very narrow nose, right? And the edge of the inner lip can be checked against perhaps the iris or another part of the eye, right? In this particular model's case, that edge of their mouth is falling right in line with the interior point of their iris. So again, maybe a smaller mouth. It depends on what you're looking at, but checking these features against each other will make a huge difference in the accuracy of your portrait. The length of the nose in relation to the distance from that eye level to the chin is typically between 1/2 and 1/3. So we see here on this drawing that the nose is somewhere between, it's not quite at 1/2, it's not quite at 1/3, it's sort of between those. So it's a little bit of a longer nose, again, from that eye level down to the chin. And one of the last points that are important to think about is this idea of the center line of the mouth, which is what we're using to really work on our mouths, in relation to the distance from the nose to the chin is approximately 1/3. So this space between the bottom of the nose and that center line of the mouth and the center line of the mouth down to the chin, it's about 1/3 to 2/3. Our chin is, of course, longer usually than the space between our nose and that middle line of our mouth. So all of these points are really good tips for keeping in mind as you are observing yourself or another person. They will help check you, right, when you're working on your drawing. Another thing that I think is always important to remember is that armature that is below the face, our beautiful skull, which is holding everything in place. If you think about the fact that the structure is holding all of the stuff in place on us, I think that can be helpful in terms of convincing a viewer of the volume of what we are trying to depict. Now, if we were in class, what we would be doing is this exercise called the 35-minute portrait. And what this essentially is showing us that if we abide by some of these facts that I just shared with us about portraiture, we could actually very easily make a pretty good portrait in a very short period of time. And so what we're going to do today is a version of that exercise. We're going to make what we see on the left here, which is a blank. I know it looks just like a Mr. Potato Head or an egg right now, but eventually it will lead to some very nice drawings in which we look at all of these proportions that I've just shared with you, and we create a template in which to make an observational portrait. And all of the placements that I have in this template on the left are actually mimicked here in this drawing on the right about where things are being placed in terms of the eyes and the nose and the mouth. And I'll talk more about that in the demo. So this portrait, this template that you see on the left over here, this will be covered in the demo video that I will do separately from this lecture video. From this template on the left, I've got some examples of student drawings. These are, again, the in-class exercise that we take the template and we start to use it to observationally draw somebody in front of us. So again, in the demo, I will talk a little bit more about how I want you to handle this, but just some student work to get you excited about it. Again, you can see around each of these that the artists have that template below their portraits. So hopefully you believe that it's possible. So after finishing this video today, please go ahead and go to the demo video that I've created to help walk you through this, and then follow the assignment directions from there. Again, for this assignment, we'll be using our charcoal media. Okay, thanks guys.